All right, as we enter the home stretch, our last week of full week of class, we'll have the final exam next week. Going over the midterm first. Midterm grades are all done, they're posted. You should be able to go back into the exam, see what you got right and wrong. Average grade was a C+. Some questions that were widely missed. Some of them I was kind of surprised were widely missed. There still seemed to be some confusion between realism and realistic. Remember, realism, it refers to the style in which a scene or group of scenes or an entire film is shot. Camera techniques. Realistic is all about the plot and whether the plot is believable. So you could do a film about that happens on another planet that is not believable, but you could shoot it using realism. So that distinction still seems to be lost. Another one that was music as juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is a contrast. So if music is being used as juxtaposition, it's when you have a scene where the music does not necessarily follow the visual image. The example from the online lecture was the end of Dr. Strangelove, which we'll watch this week, where you have nuclear bombs going off to this really beautiful song, We Will Meet Again. Classical cinema, remember that was one that a lot of people missed. Remember, classical cinema, that's what most of the films that are released, that's what category they fall into. Classical cinema avoids the extremes of realism and formalism. High-angle shots are used to reduce the importance of a subject. Remember from the first night of class, I showed that image of Milton from Office Space, who's an insignificant character, and the camera looking down on him. Ironically enough, in this class, it's the first time I've taught it in this format, where we did have a class meeting, and then the rest was online. Interestingly enough, the questions that were most missed on the midterm were all stuff we talked about when we were together in class. I actually noticed some people not taking notes when we did meet in class, which I thought was kind of curious, but it really showed on the midterm that the same people I saw not taking notes were missing like these really obvious questions from the first night of class. So I'm not sure why that was. It kind of made the first night of class, in hindsight, maybe not as necessary, but I thought it would be helpful to meet that first night to kind of go over in person the basics of what we were talking about. But those were a lot of questions that were missed. Questions on basic shot structure, realism, formalism, and the early years of filmmaking were by far the most missed questions on the midterm, which was really surprising for me. Go back in, look at what you missed, use it to study for the final, because those questions that were missed, the ones that people really should have gotten, they'll come back again on the final, I promise. Okay, moving on to Fight Club. It was some of the posts were really good. Again, some of them looked like they were lacking effort. I'm not sure if holiday fatigue is set in or not, or if people had some trouble with some of the themes of the film. But some of them were really excellent. Giovanni made a great observation on the editing of the film and how it's paced really slow in the beginning to kind of represent his boring humdrum life, and then it gets really fast-paced toward the end as Project Mayhem starts to unfold. One of the themes of the film, and it was coming up in the discussion, and one thing to think about as we conclude this discussion tonight, is how the role of men in society changed. That's really what the film is about. I remember when the film was released, it was kind of misleading for it to be called Fight Club. I thought it was just kind of a movie about underground boxing clubs, and really didn't have an interest in seeing it because I didn't think that it had the complex themes that it did. And then when I saw it, I ended up obviously loving the film because of those complex themes. So it's one of those films that the whole idea of an underground fight club is not really what the film is about. Essentially, the film is about the role of men in modern society. So you have, you'll notice if you read the forums, Yuri's post, and then I responded talking about how man essentially moves from this primal state of hunter-gatherer, and as society evolves, man shifts from a hunter-gatherer to strictly a consumer. And I think we're seeing more and more of this as technology evolves. We need to do less for ourselves anymore because technology and convenience does those things for us. So we become consumers. I've noticed that even the kinds of jobs that people have, a lot of people work in jobs revolving around retail. Retail is one of those jobs that somebody without a college degree, that right out of high school, can get, and a lot of people that don't move on to college do work in retail because we are this consumer culture. So our role, even as individuals, change. But specifically, this film talks about how the role of man has changed. Tyler says we have no great war to fight. So thus, that's how Project Mayhem evolves. So think about that as you continue your discussion. I also thought it was interesting, a couple of you mentioned the Occupy Wall Street movement. I tend to think that if this film was made after the financial collapse, maybe that would have been the target of Project Mayhem is Wall Street. So some things to think about as you continue discussing this film. Also, you'll notice extra credit has been posted. It's just due by the end of the week if you choose to do it. So maybe if you haven't gotten the grades that you would like on the discussion forums, or if you're one of those people that was not doing responses in the discussion forums and your grade has suffered, or if you didn't do as well as you liked on the midterm, or if you just want to improve your grade. Remember, like if you're at like an 89 or a low A or a high B, it's a really good idea to do the extra credit because it can push you over the top into that higher grade. So it's the film is Rear Window. So we're already going to do Psycho. The pre-film lecture on Psycho, it tells you to watch up to slide 6, I believe. If you want to do Rear Window and want to do the extra credit, watch the whole pre-film lecture. That'll give you the background, and it's not much longer if you want to do the extra credit. It'll give you the background you need for the film Rear Window, which it was tough for me to exclude Rear Window and a couple other films that I normally use, but because we're so condensed, I could only do one Hitchcock film, but Hitchcock is so brilliant that typically when I run this class, I do 2 of his films. He's the only director I do 2 films from, typically, because he's such a brilliant filmmaker, especially in regards to what we've been talking about this week, editing and acting and directing. So by all means, feel free to do the extra credit, and I will be back with you tomorrow to reconnect on Fight Club and what we've got going on the rest of the week. And I'll talk a little bit about the final exam and how that's going to work as well.